The Konica Hexanon 21mm f4 was made in Japan and first released on the market in 1966. In 1967, this lens had a price tag of $249.95, which made it the third most expensive lens made by Konica at the time. Up until 1975, this Hexanon had the widest field of view of all Konica lenses designed for the autoreflex system. There are four main versions of this lens. The first version can be recognized by its glossy black finish, extra wide aluminum depth of field ring, a metal focusing ring, and a yellow EE indicator on the aperture ring. The second version has a satin black finish, an aluminum depth of field ring that is narrower than the first version. The focusing ring is once again made of metal, and the indicator on the aperture ring is also a yellow EE. For the third version, which is the version discussed in this video, Konica abandoned the aluminum depth of field ring and went with an all-black satin finish, but kept the metal focusing ring and the yellow EE indicator on the aperture ring. And for the fourth and final version, Konica continued with the all-black design, but now the focusing ring became rubberized and the indicator on the aperture ring was changed to a green AE. For those of you who are not familiar with the EE and AE indicators found on the aperture rings of Hexanon lenses, they are abbreviations for electric eye and automatic exposure. And even though they have different names, they actually have the exact same function, which is enabling automatic exposure control. And that function is only useful for those of you who are using Hexanon lenses on a Konica SLR body. Besides the differences in appearance between the four versions, the only significant difference between them is their lens coatings, with the fourth version having the most advanced coatings that Konica had developed at the time. But other than that, they're all optically the same. The optical design of this Hexanon consists of 11 elements in 7 groups. It accepts filters with 77mm diameter. Aperture ranges from f4 to f16 with click stops in between. The diaphragm is made of 6 rounded aperture blades. Focus throw is on the long side, approximately 300 degrees. On the back, this lens has Konica AR mount. I use just a cheap AR to NEX adapter that allows me to use this lens on my Sony camera. This lens weighs 365 grams. Minimum focusing distance from your subject to your film plane or sensor is only 20 centimeters. The Konica Hexanon 21mm f4 is one truly special ultra-wide-angle lens. From the moment I saw the first few images I made with it, I was blown away by its sharpness and colors. This lens is incredibly sharp in the center, even wide open, and if you stop it down to f8 or f11, it has phenomenal corner-to-corner sharpness and great resolution. For landscape photography, I was mostly shooting it at f11 to get that extra depth of field, and I couldn't have asked for better edge-to-edge sharpness. Really impressive for an ultra-wide-angle lens that was designed almost 60 years ago. As I mentioned earlier, the other very special feature of this lens is its color rendition. The colors from this Konica are simply beautiful and are definitely on the warmer side of the spectrum, with a rich and vibrant appearance that I personally find very pleasing. Contrast and saturation are also top-notch, on par with the best that I've seen. But probably the most impressive attribute of this lens is its lack of lateral chromatic aberrations. This is an issue that a lot of vintage ultra-wide-angle lenses suffer from, but this Konica blew me away with its phenomenal control in that department. I was amazed that I couldn't see any lateral chromatic aberrations, even towards the edges of the frame, which is where that issue is most prominent. Vignetting is visible when the lens is shot wide open, but improves drastically as you stop it down to f5.6, and by f8 it is barely perceptible. Since this Konica has a large front element, it flares pretty easily and ghosting does appear whenever you point it towards the sun, so have that in mind. If you're looking to purchase this lens, try to find one with the original lens shade, which can definitely help if you're concerned with flare. Distortion is probably the main issue that might be a deal breaker for some. If you like shooting architecture or interiors, this will not be the right lens for you since it has visible mustache distortion, which can be very tricky to fix in post. For those of you who are not familiar with mustache distortion, it is a type of complex distortion that is a combination of barrel distortion and pincushion distortion in one, and that causes straight lines to have a wavy appearance, which is why it's also known as wavy distortion. But for landscape photography and any other natural environments, this does not cause any visible problems, and I never felt the need to correct any of my images. And last but not least, the build quality of this Konica is absolutely fantastic. This lens is made entirely out of metal with super sturdy construction and great ergonomics. It is a really good looking lens that is a joy to use, beautifully crafted and meticulously engineered. So all in all, I am a huge fan of the amazing Konica Hexanon 21mm f4. It is a great lens that perfectly combines excellent sharpness, beautiful colors, and phenomenal control of lateral chromatic aberrations. And on top of that, it comes in a beautifully made all-metal body. If you love landscape or nature photography and are looking for a killer vintage lens in this focal length, this Konica is without a doubt one of the best options out there. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time here at Vintage Optics.